Hey, what's up, and welcome back, treasure hunters. So today we're going to look at some of my past sales. Most of these are pretty recent, and I got some from Etsy and from eBay. Now, when I'm showing you these sales, be sure to take note of the type of items that I sold and some of the details about them and some of the other things on why I purchased them. So that way, when you're out thrifting, you can find the same type of stuff and sell it for a really nice profit. All right, treasure hunters, here's the first thing I'm going to go over. And I actually showed this in a recent video on some thrift store finds. I got this at Restore. Picked it up for, I believe, $20 or $25, somewhere in that range. Fairly large, 32 by 25. This is an original watercolor painting of this rowboat in the grass, and it was done by a local artist who was pretty well known, but especially around in Ohio, Don Getz. I honestly, when I first saw this, I wasn't even sure if this was a print or an actual watercolor because it was that well done, I guess. But here is a little stamp and then his signature. It's here, Don Getz, AWS. I think that's American Watercolor Society. And then on the back, you can see that it was framed at Gallery 1, which is a gallery here in Mentor. Really nice piece, and the frame was in excellent condition. Everything about it was in excellent condition. Anytime you find like an original piece of art that is really well done, it's in a super nice frame, and it's from a gallery, for $25 or $20, it's always a steal. You'll be able to sell it for profit. Here was another recent sale. This is hand-carved wooden duck decoy, and this is more of a decorative duck decoy. It wasn't used as, an actual duck decoy that you'll see sometimes, especially like antiques and stuff. Those are actually decoys that could have been used, in hunting and everything else, but this is more of a decorative one. It's really nicely painted, and it was carved by Wild River, and it doesn't have the artist name. I think it was a group of artists. I'm not really sure, but you can see the brand on the bottom, and it is vintage. I picked this one up at an estate sale, and I can't remember what I paid for it. It had to be between, I would think, like 15 and $30. And all I did, anytime I see duck decoys, you got to look and see if it's actually wood. A lot of times there are, replica duck decoys that are made out of like resin or some kind of material like that. And seeing that this is hand carved wood, and you can see, even where the paint's been chipped off a bit. Second thing, see if it's signed. So this one was stamped, and it was pretty easy just to do a quick Google search on Wild River, duck decoys, and a whole bunch of stuff came up with, prices, what people were selling, and all of that. Next, you want to look at like how realistic does it look? Is it very generic and not too detailed? Is it painted well? Is it just one color? All that kind of stuff matters in how much you can resell it for. But anytime I find a decent looking duck decoy and it's, under 15 or $20, I usually pick it up just because I know I can make some sort of profit off of it if it is signed. Some duck decoys, that are signed by well-known folk artists or well-known makers can reach into the thousands of dollars, like if you get that lucky. So always check that out. Age, obviously, like older duck decoys made by well-known companies or well-known people are the ones that will really get up there in price. But this was more of like, mid to late 20th century. And, I picked it up for like I said, between 15 and 30 bucks and sold it for 175. So here is a little oil painting. It was only 12 by 10, and I got this at a local estate auction, and I only paid like $2 for it. It's very detailed and very nicely done. The artist on this was not identified, so they had nothing about the artist or anything like that. And all I did was a quick search on the signature, and you can clearly see it says Caton, Katon. I just did a quick Google search on that and found that it's Martin Caton. And since I purchased this, I've actually seen a lot. I was able to recognize a lot of his work, 'cause he does mostly, like, at least from what I've seen, still life type stuff, but a lot of animals. And it's very realistic, like realism type art. Usually it's oil on canvas or acrylic on canvas. And here you can see original oil painted from life on canvas. Yeah, I picked this up at that estate auction for like $2 and ended up selling this for $2.99. His larger paintings go for, will reach into the thousands of dollars depending on what it is. Yeah, he has a very recognizable signature and style, and I'm not exactly sure where he's from, but I'm pretty sure it's probably somewhere near me. I don't know if it's in Ohio or a state nearby, but I see a lot of his stuff pop up at estate auctions and all of that. So keep a lookout for really nicely painted stuff like this, and if you can decipher who the artist is, it's always a good thing. And you can make a really nice profit margin from sales like these. So here's another piece I purchased at a local estate auction. I ended up having to pick this up in person, so I didn't pay for shipping or anything. But I saw this, I knew, and I got this a while ago. So this is kind of more when I first started getting into looking at estate auctions and all of that. I knew that any kind of vintage maps or, things like this sort of style could be worth money. I ended up paying $15 for this. I won it for $15, and I held this for a long time. It just sat in my basement. I wasn't really sure what to do with it because it was very large. It was 42 by 24, and I didn't expect it to be this large when I purchased it. So it was a bit of a surprise. So I ended up just holding on to it. And then when I was kind of trying to consolidate things and look into some old stuff I bought, I realized I did a quick Google image search or lens search of this and found that it was done in the 40s, and it was a mariner's chart made in Sweden. And this one was actually affixed to like a pretty hefty board, and it even had like a little edge around it. So this honestly could be made into like some sort of table, or it could be hung on the wall. It was in really good condition, and I just threw it up on Etsy. I actually tried to sell this. My aunt had a garage sale last year, and I tried to sell this for $75, and people thought it was too high. Then, when I saw similar, like actually the same thing sell at auction for close to $500, I couldn't even get 75 at a garage sale. But I ended up selling it here. I had it listed for 275, and I was running a sale. I think it was like around 20 or 25% off. I think I ended up selling it between like 200 and 215 or so, but still a really nice profit. And any kind of, like, when you see old mariners type stuff, old charts, nautical type stuff like this, old maps, those can have really a lot of value to them. And you can get them for a deep discount. You just have to make sure that they're not replicas, because these types of things have been reproduced a lot. And you'll see, reproduced maps, even printed on like canvas to look like, old treasure map type stuff. And if you can get an actual old, vintage map like this, or pretty much a map of anything, you could probably make a nice profit from those. So again, I wanted to show you another quick example. Seeing that I was flipping through some of my sales and noticed that I did recently also sell this map. And this is an antique lithograph map of Paris. I got this at a Goodwill for, $4 or $5 or something. And it did even have kind of a, messed up presentation here. Like the glass was cracked and chipped. But other than that, the map itself was in really good condition. Here you can see Paris, and this was done by Felix Benoit. And it says, I can't remember what DEL stands for, but and lithograph. On the back also, it states all of the information. Oxford Gal, and here's another indicator too. Like I'm in Ohio. Anytime I find art that has an older label or even a newer label from a gallery outside of the state, it's always worth looking into just because it's not likely a local artist that somebody just picked up around where you're at. I picked this up for $3 or $4 and sold it for 125. So every so often I'll find a lamp that I'll get for like a really deep discount, and I usually end up making a really good profit margin from lamps just because, when I do buy them, they're really cheap. And I got this for like $7.99 at Goodwill. And the first thing I noticed about this is a couple things. One, it's all solid brass. Two, though, it has these little S style sockets, and you can tell the sockets are older, but also it has candles. And this is a colonial style lamp. Usually they call it like an old poker lamp, and this was done by Frederick Cooper. And another thing that I noticed too were the feet on this, the kind of like lion's feet. And here's the Frederick Cooper little um, indicator here at the top. And at this point, I wasn't really, I didn't know too much about different types of antique lamps and stuff or vintage lamps. So I just did a real quick search on Frederick Cooper lamps and found a whole slew of listings and all sorts of stuff. So for $7.99, this was definitely a steal. It did take me a little bit. I had a lot of interest, a lot of people liking, my post on eBay and liking it on Etsy. A lot of times, people see stuff like that, they like it, but they don't really need a lamp. And that's what I've noticed with a lot. It takes a little bit to sell any kind of these vintage lamps and stuff for the most part. It was all intact, still the finial at the top and everything else. Just obviously no shade, but yeah, I picked this up for about $8 and sold it for $2.49. So I got a couple eBay sales I wanted to go over too that I've had recently. Here's one. This is a canvas photograph of Hootie and the Blowfish, and it's autographed by all four band members in like a silver pen. I picked this up for I think $6 or $7.99 at a Savers. I didn't even expect, like, I was about to leave and I something fell out from behind some photo I was or some painting or print or something I was looking at, and it ended up being this. I had no idea who it was until I saw it. I know that's Darius Rucker. Then obviously with the band, I knew it was Hootie and the Blowfish. So for only anytime like a well-known band like this, any kind of autographed anything, when you can get it for under $10 is a steal because there's going to be someone out there that will pay a lot more for keys. So again, this was a high-res photo on canvas, and it is hand signed. And I did make sure, like, that's another thing, you want to make sure that it is actually signed. Sometimes there will be, just the printed signatures on here, but you could clearly tell looking closer that this was signed in like a silver or Sharpie or whatever. But I had this listed. At first, I had it listed because I saw things selling on eBay for towards $300. They were listed, so I had this listed for $225, then I dropped down to $199, then I had it at $159, and someone ended up offering me $125. So I just accepted, and super easy to ship because it was real light and easy to package. Anytime you can find well-known, whether it's a band, whether it is some sort of athlete, some sort of musician, whatever it might be, if it's honestly, if it's actually signed and you can tell who signed it and stuff, and you can get it for cheap, there'll always be someone out there that will pay more for it, and you'll be able to make some sort of profit. Here's a piece I sold. I actually sold this to somebody, I think either in Italy or somewhere in Europe, and I picked this up in an estate auction. I got it for 15 or 20 bucks. It was unframed, but you can tell by looking at the photos. One, it's an engraving. It's very, very detailed, and it's an actual engraving because when you look closer, here's a little telltale sign here, and just the way, especially if you get out like a magnifying glass or loop or anything like that, you can see that these are not printed on there like by any kind of modern machine. Even the back of the paper, you can see that it's just very old. This was done by Piranesi, Giovanni Battista Piranesi, 18th century engraving. And he did all sorts of different engravings. And a lot of times I found that they were put into like books and stuff. And that's why I put on this. There's a very slight crease right down the center, most likely because this was part of some sort of book with a bunch of other similar pieces in there. Anyway, I got this for like 15 or 20 bucks, even unframed, and I ended up accepting an offer, I think of like 275 or something. Held on to this for a while because I wasn't really sure what I should sell it for. And then I saw an Antiques Roadshow where somebody had some of the same engravings. They weren't the exact same ones, but they had some engravings by Piranesi, and the appraiser ended up appraising them for like a couple $1,000s or something. So I actually did a call with Dr. Lori, and she told me, yeah, it's old. It's a 18th century, definitely. It's really nice, and I should be able to get anywhere from two 250 to 450 or whatever it might be. So ended up kind of splitting it in the middle and made a nice profit from it. So there's a piece I also had in a recent thrift store finds video, and this was this Calamist. It's called a host knife. Um, it says a perfect party pairing knife or whatever for cutting, vegetables or fruits or whatever else. Has a bottle or a can opener and a bottle opener and all sorts of stuff. Looks unused. It even had this little, I don't even know what that screw is for, but it was in there in the bag still and super good condition. Even the outside of the box wasn't even that worn. And here's a close up. Uh, any kind of cutlery, mid century or earlier cutlery, like knives or even, certain other utensils, can go for a really good amount of money. So you just have to realize like what brand it is and do a quick search. With this, I picked this up at Goodwill for like $2, and obviously it was closed in this case. Definitely looks mid-century, so I just took a quick look inside, did a quick search, and found obviously that it sells for a lot more than $2. Yeah, I would definitely look at anytime you can get knife sets like this that are vintage, in good condition, by a quality brand. Most likely you're going to make a really good profit from it, especially if you find them at the thrift store or a garage sale or something. And I had this listed for 69 bucks, which was kind of the going rate for these that I saw on eBay, and ended up accepting an offer of, I think, 50. This is the last piece I'm going to show you today. This is Haitian folk art, and I know if you guys have watched any of my other sales videos, I've gone over other Haitian paintings that I have sold. For whatever reason, mid-century or a little bit later, Haitian folk art paintings just tend to fetch, a decent amount of profit when you, especially seeing that you can pick them up for next to nothing. And I picked this one up for like $3 or $4 at a Goodwill. This was actually done by more of a well-known artist. I have some other pieces listed that you can find, you know, other paintings by them, but they're really not as well known. But this guy, Adam Leontis, was a lot more well known. You can see here is his signature, real easy to read. I had it listed. Some of his stuff I saw like on Cherish was listed as high as like 750 and all this. And I had this listed for a lot higher to start and just continually dropped the price down just because it, just wasn't selling obviously at that high of a price. And I had it listed for $299 and somebody offered me something like $175 for it. And seeing that I only paid, under $5, I just accepted and took the profit. And sometimes you have to do that if you want to turn things over. If you don't, you're going to be holding stuff for a long time. But it was in good condition, easy to ship, and a really nice profit margin from the sale. So those were 10 recent sales that I've had. If you got some information out of this and you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions, of course, leave it in the comments below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I have a lot of thrift store finds and auction items coming up soon. Should be either this weekend or next week. I'll post a video. Plus, I actually went to an estate sale recently and it was a really cool experience. So look out for that video too. Well, thanks guys. I appreciate it. Appreciate all your support. And if you get out there, I wish you the best of luck when you're treasure hunting.